Our African safari was the trip of a lifetime. We spent 10 days in Tanzania, visited 4 different parks, and couldn't believe how much amazing wildlife we saw, as well as how many really nice people we met. The trip was one that we would encourage everyone to take, and there's things we knew going in, as well as things we learned along the way that would have come in handy to know. So, we'd like to share with you our top 10 tips for enjoying your African safari. Number one, plan in advance. Jen, you planned our trip for like 9 months, and I don't know that that's what everybody needs to do, but there are a lot of real good reasons why someone should take their time and not do this. This is an overnight spur of the moment trip. Talk about why.
There are a lot of different options when you travel to Africa, and so you need to decide what you want to do. We decided we wanted to see the wildebeest crossing the Mara River, and so that dictated the country we went to, which was Tanzania, and the time of year, which was September. We also considered the political climate and whether it's safe to travel to certain countries, as well as their record of conservation. So Tanzania, since its founding in 1961, has a very good record of conservation and how they treat the animals. The second thing is meds and vaccinations. You need to take certain medications and get vaccinations before you go to Africa. And some of them are a series, so it takes a month or two to complete them all. And then you should get your visa in advance. It'll save you like an hour and a half at the airport if you do that.
All right. Okay, our number two tip is choose your tour company and guide wisely. Your tour company is going to be who books everything from the moment you arrive in the country to the moment you leave. So that's your lodging, your meals, the parks you're visiting, the reservations, and providing your guide. We were real lucky. A company called Roy Safari had been recommended to us by our friends Jeff and Jen. Hey, Jeff and Jen. And we went with them and we're really pleased. They've been in business a long time, like 40 years. And they're not a fly-by-night company, which is something you want to avoid, because if something goes wrong, there are some companies out there that just kind of disappear on you in the middle of your trip. The other part is your guide. Your guide is going to be with you the whole time. We were on a 10-day safari, and our guide, Thomas Moshe, was with us the entire time, basically except when we were in our room. And he was fantastic. He has 20 years of experience, very knowledgeable about the animals, and a really nice guy. So if you're looking for a recommendation from us, we would absolutely recommend Roy Safari, and especially recommend Thomas Moshe. He is the man.
That's right.
And we're not getting paid to say it. Our third tip is think about your budgeting priorities. You're going to spend a lot of money to go to Africa. There's no way to get around that, but there are ways to control your budget. And the three things that you can think about that can bring the cost down are the length of your stay, or the length of your safari. We chose 10 days. That was perfect for us. We saw all kinds of stuff, but by the end we were ready to go home. We were glad we went that long. The next thing that you can do to control your cost is go in a group or have your own vehicle and guide. And we had heard the recommendation, again, Jeff and Jen, that having your own guide and own vehicle is the best way to go, and that was absolutely correct. That's what we did. What that allows you to do is have the whole vehicle to yourself, obviously, and you're not jockeying for position with other people to get the good shot or see the animal. The other thing it does is your driver can take you where you want to go. There were times where we had to wait a pretty long time for something to happen, watching these animals, and if somebody else had been in the car and said, I'm bored, let's do something else, we would have missed some really good stuff. So that's the other thing. Now, having your own guide and vehicle does cost more because you're not sharing the cost with other people, but we really believe it's the way to go. The third thing is lodging. We stayed at a budget lodge, a couple of intermediate priced facilities, and then one high-end place. And while the more expensive places were nicer, the budget place was fine. Especially when you think about you only go there basically to eat and sleep. The meals were great at the budget place, and it wasn't as fancy, but it was fine. So that's the place where we suggest, if you're trying to look for ways to shave down your budget, is go with the less expensive lodging.
The fourth tip is to pack the right clothes. You may think it's hot in Africa all the time. Well, it's not. It does get cool in the evenings and in the mornings, and at higher elevations it gets downright cold. So you do need to have layers and be prepared for the different types of weather. The other thing is safari clothes. This shirt that Craig has on is actually very useful. I mean, in addition to the different pockets and things, one day he had a t-shirt on only and not this shirt, and the tsetse flies are biting him through his t-shirt. But when he put the shirt back on, they couldn't bite him. So very important to have the right type of clothes, and convertible plants are really a good thing to have because there's a weight limit on how much luggage you can have. It's about 30 pounds, how much everything can weigh, your clothes, your binoculars, your camera gear, everything. And if you have some convertible pants, you have shorts and pants in one, and it takes up less room, less weight, and you can have gear for the different types of weather. Tip number 5, pack the right personal items. This one is especially for the women. We tend to have a lot of cosmetics and hair products. Try to be very selective about what you bring. The animals don't care what you look like, and you can leave the long eyelashes to the giraffes. The other thing is you might be wondering about going to the restroom on safari. Well, there happen to be a lot more bathrooms than I expected. They do have running water, and you can wash your hands, but they tend to not have paper towels, so you probably want to bring some hand towels and wet naps and hand sanitizer. The other thing is there are times when there isn't a bathroom and you may need to use it behind the truck. So I was very concerned about this, and I found this handy little product. I don't know if you can see that, called Go Girl. As you know, it's a little bit easier for men to go on the fly than it is for us.
Go on, out the fly.
Funny. And this is what it is. It's essentially a funnel. And turns out I only had to use it a couple of times, but the times that I used it, I was glad that I had it.
And you had the thrill of experiencing standing up to pee, so there was that.
That was very interesting.
Tip number 6, bring a carry-on that can double as a day pack. It's very important that you pack your valuables and medications, anything like that, in a carry-on on any flights going into and out of an African country, as well as flights within the country. We weren't aware of this, but apparently luggage tends to get lost and delayed quite a bit, even more than normal. We got lucky, didn't lose anything, but having this backpack was great. It's a camelback, you could use any one. I didn't even use the bladder for it, but as well as a carry-on, this served as a backpack to carry cameras and binoculars and that sort of thing when you're out on safari. So absolutely want to bring this.
Tip number 7 is you should bring enough cash. And you need to determine how much cash you need. You're going to be tipping your driver, porters, you want to do some shopping. So think about how much cash you need, and then probably bring a little bit more than that. We ended up tipping our driver more than the recommended amount because we liked him so much.
Did we mention that was Thomas Moshe from Roy Safari?
That's right. And he did a fantastic job. The other thing is we did change some money into Tanzanian currency, which ended up being unnecessary.
Unnecessary, but the Tanzania shillings currency is the coolest currency ever. You can see one of these has an elephant on it, and the other has a rhino. So they made nice souvenirs, but we didn't ever really need the shillings.
Yeah, everywhere we went, they took US dollars. They were happy to take US dollars, so you don't really need the shillings unless you want a souvenir like we had.
Our number 8 tip is to bring the right technology. What we're talking about here are cameras and binoculars. We brought this still camera with a 55 to 200 millimeter lens, and this was just right. We didn't have to change lenses, but we're still able to get things in the distance by zooming in, as well as close-up animals. We could have gone with the big National Geographic lens, but that would have taken up the entire 30 pounds worth of luggage you're allowed, and then it would have made it difficult to bring in tight shots. We also brought binoculars. We used 10 by 24. These could have been a little bit stronger, but the trade-off is they would have been heavier and more to carry. There were some things in the far, far distance that even with this, we weren't able to see maybe as much as we would have liked to, but still probably okay. And then for our video, we brought a small Sony Handycam. I would show you that, but we're filming with it right now. And then finally, when you bring technology, you have to be able to charge it. And we found this Insignia travel adapter. Hold it up close there. Found that at Best Buy, and this converts all types of plugs into the US plugs. The thing that's really nice about this one, in addition to being able to plug it into a variety of plugs, it has an external plug and a USB, so you can charge 2 items up at the same time.
Tip number 9 is manage your expectations. There are a lot of things that you may want to see when you get to Africa. And you may not get to see everything you plan to see, but there will be a lot of things you see that you had no idea you would see. So enjoy the moments as they come. One of the things to be aware of, though, is that in Africa, they are developing nations, and you're not going to see this in the safari videos and the advertisements, but you're going to see some poverty. You may see some children begging for food, people trying to sell you everything under the sun, and it's just, you know, something to be aware of and to expect.
And to clarify, when you're in the parks themselves, you don't see that. It's in the cities that you're traveling to in between parks where you see that.
Right.
Tip number 10 is to stand up in your vehicle as much as you can. Now, your Toyota Land Cruiser is going to have a pop-up top which allows you to stand up and see the views. A lot of times we'd see people just riding around waiting for their guide to find something for them, then they would stand up. But we really enjoyed standing up and helping to be on the search for animals. Your guide is going to have eagle eyes and be an expert at spotting things, but from up high and not having the responsibility of also watching the road, there'll be times where you will see things that your guide didn't spot. And it kind of adds to the challenge, and we felt an enjoyment to the trip that we were taking a more active part in our search for wildlife. All right, we said this was a top 10 list, but because you're such a great audience, we're giving you a bonus tip, and that is...
learn a little bit of Swahili.
That's right. Anytime you visit a foreign country, if you can learn a little bit of the language, even if it's just rudimentary, it kind of shows respect and that sort of thing. We never really needed to speak Swahili. Everybody we met spoke English. But we're going to give you a couple of starter tips here in Swahili. You want to start?
Sure. The first word is hello, which is jambo. Jambo.
Jambo. There, you're speaking Swahili already. The next word is thank you, which is asante. And thank you very much is asante sana. And the easy way to remember that, if you ever saw Lion King, Rafiki said, asante sana, squash banana, wee. That's how I remembered it.
The third word is you're welcome, and it's caribou. It's like the animal, caribou. Pronounced the same way, spelled differently.
Yeah, and it's not quite the same translation because it gets used in a lot of different ways. People say caribou like welcome into my house or my hotel. People say it as you're welcome. If you say thank you, they'll say caribou. But they also use it as enjoy. So if you're eating a dinner and a server puts something in front of you, they'll say caribou, like enjoy this. But at first we were a little confused by it because they thought they were saying you're welcome before we even had a chance to say thank you. But it kind of has a broader meaning, but it gets used a lot.
That's right.
Do we have any others?
Yes. So the polite way to say no thank you is hapana asante. So rather than just saying no when someone offers you something, hapana, that's a little bit rude. Hapana asante is no thank you, a little bit politer way to decline.
So there you go. There's a little starter Swahili for you. Hope you have a good time mastering the language. That concludes our tips. Thanks for watching. If you haven't seen them and would like to see more about what our trip was like, we do have a couple of videos posted. Jenny and Craig's Tanzanian Safaris Parts 1 and 2. And a lot of what we were talking about, you'll see in action by watching those. Thanks, everyone.
Asante sana.